Sara Marshall, a determined girl training to become a police officer, discovers her boyfriend Jayden committed a desperate crime of her dreams. When forced to choose between love and justice, her decision shocks everyone and changes their lives forever. Before we dive into the story, let's do what Sleepless in Seattle taught us. Share where you're listening from. Comment below. The morning sun filters through Sara Marshall's bedroom window, casting long shadows across police academy brochures scattered on her desk. She traces her grandfather's smile in the framed photo beside her bed, his badge gleaming even in the faded photograph. The weight of his legacy settles around her shoulders as she pushes back her covers and begins her daily routine. Her muscles protest as she drops into the first push-up, but Sara doesn't stop until she hits 50. The worn carpet leaves impressions on her palms, tiny constellations of dedication. Through her window, she can see the neighbor's cat watching her morning workout with lazy interest, its tail flicking in time with her movements. Another early start? Her mother's voice drifts up from the kitchen, carried on the scent of coffee and toast. Sara completes her final set before responding. Police Academy fitness test requires 2 miles in under 16 minutes. She wipes sweat from her forehead, already calculating the time she'll need to shave off her current pace. Downstairs, Janet Marshall stands at the counter in her nurse's scrubs, dark circles beneath her eyes, testament to another night shift. She slides a plate of whole wheat toast across the counter as Sara enters. "You're pushing yourself hard lately." "Have to." Sara bites into the toast, her mind already on the training course she's set up in the backyard. Mr. Collins says the scholarship committee looks at more than just grades. Janet's expression softens. "Your grandfather would be proud, you know. He always said you had the right spirit for the force." Sara's throat tightens. She focuses on her breakfast instead of responding, but her hand drifts to the badge hanging from her neck. Her grandfather's last gift, passed down with trembling hands and whispered wisdom about justice and sacrifice. The backyard grass is still wet with dew as Sara starts her obstacle course. She's recreated the Academy's agility test with whatever she could find. Old tires from Mr. Peterson's garage, wooden pallets arranged as hurdles, a length of rope hung from the sturdy oak tree. It's not perfect, but it's enough to push her limits. She runs the course 3 times, each lap faster than the last. By the final sprint, her lungs burn and her legs shake, but Sara pushes through. The badge bounces against her chest with each step, a rhythm that matches her heartbeat. Willow Creek High School looms ahead as Sara walks the familiar route, her gym bag heavy with extra clothes and training gear. Empty storefronts line Main Street, their windows covered with newspaper or simply left to gather dust. The playground she passed every day as a child sits abandoned, its swings creaking in the morning breeze. "Morning, Sara." Mrs. Chen calls from her flower shop, one of the few businesses still thriving. "Still training for the academy?" Sara waves, adjusting her bag. "Yes, ma'am. Every day." Such dedication. Mrs. Chen's smile carries a hint of sadness. "We need more young people like you staying in Willow Creek. Too many leaving for the city these days." The conversation follows Sara as she continues toward school, a familiar weight settling on her shoulders. Willow Creek is dying, everyone knows it, but the small brick building of the police station still stands proud on the corner of Oak and Main, its flag snapping in the wind. Every time Sara passes it, her resolve strengthens. Someone has to stay and fight for this town. The hallways of Willow Creek High buzz with pre-class energy. Sara weaves through clusters of students, her trained eye catching the subtle tensions that often precede trouble. Near the cafeteria, she spots 2 sophomores squaring off, their voices rising above the general chatter. "You think you're tough?" The taller boy shoves the other. "Prove it." Sara steps between them before the situation escalates. "That's enough, Marcus." Her voice carries the authority she's practiced, firm but not aggressive. "You too, Jake." Marcus bristles. "This isn't your business, Marshall." "Maybe not." Sara meets his glare steadily. "But Officer Reynolds is doing his rounds, and I'm pretty sure neither of you wants to explain a fight to him." She turns to Jake, whose fists are still clenched. "Your mom works 2 jobs, right? Think about how disappointed she'd be if you got suspended." The mention of his mother deflates Jake's anger. After a moment, Marcus backs down too, muttering under his breath as he stalks away. Always playing cop, Marshall? Someone calls from the crowd that's gathered. A few snickers follow, but Sara ignores them. Mr. Hay Collins appears, dispersing the remaining students with practiced efficiency. Well handled, Sara. He adjusts his wire-rimmed glasses. Though I hope you're not planning to break up fights as a career path. No, sir. Sara manages a small smile. Just trying to keep the peace until I can do it officially. About that. He pulls a folder from his briefcase. The scholarship application deadline is coming up. Have you finished your essay? Sara's stomach tightens. Almost. I'm just polishing it. Good. He hands her the folder. I've included some additional materials about the program. The committee will be looking closely at leadership examples. His eyes crinkle with knowing humor. I'd say breaking up fights counts. The rest of the school day passes in a blur of classes and homework assignments. Sara takes meticulous notes, her mind occasionally drifting to the scholarship essay waiting on her laptop. Everything has to be perfect. Her grades, her physical fitness, her character. One misstep could cost her the future she's worked so hard to build. The final bell rings, releasing a flood of students into the afternoon sun. Sara makes her way to the old library steps, her heart lifting at the sight of Jayden Carter leaning against the worn brick wall. His smile brightens when he spots her, though something flickers in his eyes. A shadow of worry that disappears so quickly, Sara almost thinks she imagined it. There's my future police chief, Jayden says, pushing off the wall to meet her. His worn sneakers scuff against the concrete, the holes in his jeans more necessity than fashion. Sara bumps his shoulder with hers. Officer first, then detective. Chief's a long way off. Yeah? He falls into step beside her, their hands finding each other with practiced ease. Well, I've got time. The simple statement warms her chest. Jayden's never questioned her dreams, never suggested she aim lower or choose an easier path. Even when other boys at school mock her training routine or call her officer try hard, Jayden stands firm in his support. They walk through town together, past the shuttered movie theater where they had their first date, past the corner store where Jayden works part-time. His grip on her hand tightens as they pass the "going out of business" sign in the store window. Mr. Reeves is really closing? Sara asks, though she already knows the answer. Jayden nods, his jaw tight. End of the month. Says he can't compete with the big box stores in Milton. He kicks at a loose piece of concrete. That's 3 jobs I've lost this year. You'll find something else. Sara squeezes his hand. The diner's always hiring. Yeah, minimum wage and split shifts. Jayden's voice carries an edge she's not used to hearing. Barely enough to help Mom with the bills, let alone... He trails off, shaking his head. Never mind. Tell me about your training today. Sara lets him change the subject, but the worry in his eyes lingers in her mind. They've talked about leaving Willow Creek together, her at the police academy, him finding work in the city. But dreams require money, and lately, Jayden's hope seems to be fraying at the edges. They reach Betsy's Diner, a neon haven of chrome and comfort food. The bell chimes as they enter, and the smell of coffee and grilled onions wraps around them like a familiar blanket. Betsy herself waves from behind the counter, her gray hair escaping from its net. The usual, she calls as they slide into their booth, the one with the torn vinyl seat that Jayden always claims is lucky. Just fries today, Jayden says before Sara can answer. He pulls out his wallet, counting crumpled bills with careful fingers. Sara starts to protest, but the set of his shoulders stops her. Pride is sometimes all a person has in Willow Creek, and Jayden's had too little of it lately. Their fries arrive on a chipped plate, steam rising in the afternoon sun that streams through the smudged windows. Jayden reaches across the table, his fingers finding Sara's. Remember when we used to come here after Little League? You'd always steal my milkshake. I did not steal it. Sara dips a fry in ketchup, smiling at the memory. You offered to share, after you gave me those puppy dog eyes. His laugh carries a touch of their childhood ease, but something darker lurks beneath it. Everything was simpler then, wasn't it? Sara studies his face, noting the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his jaw. Jay? What's wrong? Nothing. He withdraws his hand, focusing on the fries. Just thinking about the future. Your academy dreams, he gestures vaguely, whatever this is. Hey. Sara leans forward, waiting until he meets her eyes. We'll figure it out. Together. Jayden's smile doesn't quite reach his eyes, but he nods. Yeah, together. They finish their fries in comfortable silence, watching the afternoon crowd filter through the diner. Sara catches glimpses of their reflection in the window, her straight-backed posture next to Jayden's casual slouch, his protective lean toward her, the way their shoulders align like puzzle pieces meant to fit. The walk home takes them past Jayden's house, a small structure fighting a losing battle against time and neglect. Through the front window, Sara spots Mia at the kitchen table, her math homework spread around her like a paper fortress. Jayden's mother, Carla, hurries past in her waitress uniform, car keys jingling as she rushes to her second job. Jayden steps slow, his eyes fixed on the scene. Mia's growing so fast. She needs new clothes, school supplies. His voice catches. Mom's killing herself working doubles, and it's still not enough. Sarah's heart aches at the defeat in his voice. She wants to help, but her own family's finances are stretched thin. The Police Academy scholarship is her only shot at escaping Willow Creek's gravitational pull of poverty. Have you thought about applying to community college? She suggests carefully. There are grants. Can't. Jayden's voice is flat. Mom needs help with the bills now, not in 2 years. He runs a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every movement. Sometimes I think, never mind. Think what? Nothing. He forces a smile. Just tired. Text you later? Before Sara can press further, he's moving toward his house, shoulders hunched against questions she hasn't asked. She watches him disappear inside, worry gnawing at her stomach. Something's wrong, but she can't quite grasp what. Her own home welcomes her with familiar creaks and shadows. Janet is already gone for her night shift, leaving a note about leftovers in the fridge. Sara barely notices the empty rooms anymore. They've adapted to being ships passing in the night, each pursuing their own version of a better future. In her room, Sara pulls out her criminal law textbook, determined to get ahead on her reading. But her mind keeps drifting to Jayden's troubled expression, the weight of unspoken words between them. Her phone buzzes with a text from him. Sorry for being weird earlier. Just stressed. You're the best thing in my life, you know that? Sarah's fingers hover over the keyboard. There's so much she wants to say, so many questions she wants to ask. Instead, she types, always here for you, whatever you need. His response comes quickly. I know. Got some things to take care of, but it'll all work out. Promise. Sara sets her phone aside, unease settling in her chest like a stone. She tries to focus on her textbook, on the clear lines between right and wrong printed in black and white. But Jayden's words echo in her mind, carrying a weight she doesn't quite understand. Outside her window, Willow Creek settles into evening shadows. Sara clutches her grandfather's badge, its edges worn smooth by years of similar moments. The path ahead seemed so clear this morning. Train hard, earn the scholarship, become the kind of officer who makes a difference. Now, watching darkness creep across her hometown, Sara feels the first tremors of doubt. Not about her dreams, but about the cost of pursuing them. About the people she might have to leave behind, or worse, the ones who might leave her first. She falls asleep with her textbook open beside her, dreams filled with the sound of Jayden's laughter mixing with police sirens, and the weight of choices not yet made pressing against her chest like a badge made of lead. The morning brings no clarity, only the certainty that something has shifted, like the first loose stone before a landslide. Sara goes through her training routine with mechanical precision, but her mind keeps returning to the shadows in Jayden's eyes, the words he left unspoken. In the growing light, Willow Creek stretches before her, a town full of broken dreams and desperate choices. Sara touches her grandfather's badge, its metal cool against her palm. She's always believed in justice, in the bright line between right and wrong. But as she watches the sun rise over her dying hometown, she begins to understand that some choices live in the shadows between what's right and what's necessary. The question is, which side of that line will she choose to stand on when the moment comes? The next day dawns gray and restless. Sara's morning run takes her past the old gas station, its cracked pavement collecting puddles from an overnight drizzle. She almost misses them at first. 2 figures huddled in the shadow of the building. But years of training her eye for detail make her pause mid-stride. Jayden stands with his back to the street, shoulders tense beneath his worn hoodie. Across from him, Ronnie Martinez leans against the wall, a cigarette dangling from his fingers. Even from this distance, Sara recognizes the familiar swagger of Willow Creek's resident troublemaker. Her steps falter. Ronnie's reputation precedes him. Petty theft, vandalism, rumors of worse. He's everything Sara stands against, everything she's training to stop. What could Jayden possibly want with him? She debates confronting them, her feet already turning toward the gas station. But Jayden chooses that moment to look over his shoulder, and something in his expression, fear, guilt, makes her chest tight. He spots her before she can decide what to do, his face shifting into a mask of casual indifference. Sara? He jogs over, leaving Ronnie smirking in the shadows. Thought you'd be done with your run by now. Changed my route. Sara studies his face, looking for traces of the boy who shared fries with her yesterday. Everything okay? Yeah, just... He glances back at Ronnie, who's already disappeared around the corner. School stuff. Chemistry project. The lie sits between them like a physical thing. Jayden doesn't take chemistry. He switched to physics last semester. But calling him out feels like crossing a line Sara's not ready to acknowledge exists. Jay, I've got to go. He kisses her cheek, quick and distracted. Mom needs help with Mia before school. See you later? Before she can respond, he's gone, leaving her with questions that taste like ash in her mouth. At dinner that night, Janet stirs her soup absently, her nurse's intuition picking up on Sara's distraction. There's been another break-in at the pharmacy, she mentions, watching Sara's reaction. Officer Reynolds says they're seeing more property crimes lately. Sara's spoon clatters against her bowl. What kind of crimes? Small stuff mostly, missing inventory, cash from registers. Janet sighs. People are desperate. The factory closing hit everyone hard. That doesn't make it right. Sara's voice comes out sharper than intended. No, it doesn't. Janet studies her daughter. But sometimes good people make bad choices when they're backed into a corner. The words follow Sara upstairs to her room, where her police academy application sits half-finished on her desk. She's always seen the world in clear lines, right and wrong, legal and illegal, justice and crime. But Jayden's face keeps appearing in her mind, overlaid with the image of him talking to Ronnie. Her phone buzzes with a text from Jayden. Miss you. Everything's fine. Just need to sort some things out. Sara types and deletes 3 different responses before settling on, you know you can tell me anything, right? His reply comes hours later when she's already in bed. Some things are better if you don't know. Trust me? She lies awake long past midnight, staring at those words until they blur. Trust has always been easy between them, as natural as breathing, as simple as holding hands across a diner table. But now it feels fragile, like a soap bubble ready to burst at the slightest touch. The next morning brings news that chills Sara's blood. The corner store, Mr. Reeves' place, was robbed overnight. Nothing major, just the cash register contents and some inventory, but the responding officer's report mentions signs of forced entry. Sara walks to school in a daze, her mind racing. She remembers Jayden's words about losing his job there, about needing money for his family. But no, she can't let herself think that way. Not about Jayden, not about the boy who holds her hand and believes in her dreams. The evidence builds over the next few days like a slow-motion avalanche. Jayden starts missing school, offering vague excuses about family obligations. When he does show up, there's cash in his wallet. Not much, but more than his part-time jobs have ever provided. He avoids her questions with practiced ease, deflecting with jokes or changing the subject to her police academy plans. It all comes to a head on a Tuesday evening. Sara's studying in her room when her phone rings, Jayden's ringtone, but there's something frantic in the repeated chimes. Sara? His voice sounds wrong, breathless, scared. I need your help, please. What's wrong? She's already standing, grabbing her jacket. Can't explain over the phone. Meet me at the old warehouse? Please, Sara. I wouldn't ask if... He breaks off and she hears voices in the background. Just hurry. The warehouse sits on the edge of town, a hulking shadow against the sunset sky. Sara's grandfather used to warn her about this place. Too many blind corners, too many places for trouble to hide. But she finds herself running toward it anyway, her heart pounding in time with her footsteps. Jayden waits by the loading dock, pacing like a caged animal. When he sees her, relief floods his face, followed quickly by shame. I messed up, Sara. His voice cracks. I messed up so bad. Before she can respond, police sirens wail in the distance, growing closer. Jayden's face drains of color. Jay? Sara steps toward him, dread pooling in her stomach. What did you do? He pulls something from his pocket, a wad of cash, wrinkled and stained. It was supposed to be easy, just in and out. But the owner came back and Ronnie panicked. And an armed robbery? The words taste like betrayal. Please tell me you weren't involved in an armed robbery. The sirens are closer now. Jayden grabs her hands, his touch desperate. I did it for us, Sara, for my family, for your academy tuition. I thought if I could just get enough money. Sara feels the world tilt beneath her feet. Everything she believes in, everything she's worked for, crashes against the reality of Jayden's confession. She thinks of her grandfather's badge hanging heavy around her neck. Thinks of justice and love and the impossible space between them. Help me get out of here, Jayden pleads. Just give me a head start. Please, Sara. I love you. The sirens reach a crescendo and Sara stands at the crossroads of everything she is and everything she might become. The choice before her feels impossible. Betray her principles or betray her heart. In the fading light, Jayden's eyes hold all the desperation of Willow Creek's dying dreams and all the weight of her own impossible choice. The first police car rounds the corner, its lights painting the warehouse walls in alternating red and blue. And Sara Marshall, daughter of Janet, granddaughter of a cop, girlfriend of a boy who chose wrong for all the right reasons, takes a deep breath and prepares to make a decision that will change everything. Sara's world crumbles as Jayden's words echo through her darkened bedroom. Her hands tremble against the doorframe, each breath catching in her throat as the full weight of his confession crashes over her. Armed robbery. The phrase burns in her mind like acid, corroding everything she thought she knew about the boy she loves. Through her window, police sirens wail in the distance, their sounds spreading across Willow Creek like ripples in a poisoned pond. Each rising note pushes her closer to the edge of a decision she never wanted to make. Say something, Jayden pleads, his voice cracking. Please, Sara. She can't look at him. Instead, her eyes fix on her grandfather's photo, propped on her desk beside a stack of police academy brochures. His stern face stares back at her, badge gleaming even in the dim light. The metal of his old badge feels cold against her chest, its weight suddenly unbearable. Sara sinks onto her bed, tears breaking free despite her efforts to hold them back. The photo blurs in her vision as she grips it, searching those familiar features for answers. Her grandfather had always known right from wrong. He'd never hesitated, never questioned, but he'd never had to choose between duty and love. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Jayden paces the small space between her bed and desk, his sneakers wearing paths in the carpet. The owner wasn't supposed to be there, Ronnie said. Stop. The word comes out sharper than she intends, making them both flinch. Just stop. Jayden crosses to her in 2 quick strides, dropping to his knees before her. His hands find her shoulders, gripped desperate. You have to understand. My family, we're drowning, Sara. Mom's working herself to death. Mia needs new clothes, new everything, and His voice breaks. I just wanted to fix things. Sara feels herself fracturing under the pressure of his touch, the weight of his desperation. She jerks away, unable to bear the contact. Every brush of his fingers feels like a betrayal of everything she's worked toward, everything she believes in. The police sirens grow louder, then fade, only to be replaced by new ones. The sound mirrors the cycling thoughts in her head. Duty, love, right, wrong. An endless loop with no clear answer. Her gaze drifts to her desk, where the police academy brochure sits like an accusation. The smiling officers on its cover mock her current reality. Their world is black and white, full of clear choices and definitive action. But here in her dimly lit bedroom, with Jayden's ragged breathing filling the space between sirens, everything bleeds into shades of gray. I need time, she whispers, the words feeling inadequate even as they leave her lips. I need to think. Jayden nods, but his eyes tell a different story. They're wild with fear, darting between her face and the window where red and blue lights occasionally paint the walls. Time is a luxury they don't have, and they both know it. Sara. He reaches for her again, but stops short when she tenses. Whatever you decide, just know I did it for us. For your academy tuition, for my family, for... Don't. The word comes out like a plea. Please don't make this about me. Behind them, a car door slams somewhere in the neighborhood. Jayden jumps at the sound, his face going pale. Reality crashes back in. They need to move, need to act. Sara forces herself to her feet, mind racing. The old Henderson place backs up to her yard, its abandoned shed a dark shadow against the evening sky. It's not a solution, barely even a temporary fix, but it's all she can think of right now. Come on. She grabs Jayden's arm, pulling him toward her bedroom door. Each step feels like lead in her shoes, but she forces herself to move. The house creaks around them as they descend the stairs, every sound amplified by their shared tension. The backyard air hits them with its early evening chill. Sara leads Jayden through the gap in the fence, her heart pounding with each rustle of leaves, each distant siren. The shed looms before them, its weathered boards and rusted hinges offering dubious sanctuary. Inside, the air is thick with dust and abandonment. Jayden hunches in the corner, looking smaller somehow in the confined space. Sara's throat tightens at the sight. Stay here, she manages. Just stay hidden until I figure something out. Their fingers tangle as she turns to leave, muscle memory refusing to let go. Sara squeezes once, hard, trying to pour everything she can't say into that simple contact. I won't abandon you, she promises, even as doubt gnaws at her resolve. The walk back to her house feels endless. Each step takes her further from Jayden, but no closer to an answer. The weight of her grandfather's badge presses against her chest with every movement, a constant reminder of everything at stake. Morning comes too quickly, bringing with it the harsh light of reality. Sara moves through her routine like a ghost, barely tasting her breakfast, hardly hearing her mother's goodbye as she leaves for work. The walk to school becomes an exercise in composure. Each passing police car makes her spine stiffen. Each casual glance from a neighbor feels like an interrogation. Willow Creek High buzzes with news of the robbery. Sara catches fragments of conversations as she moves through the halls, each word striking like a physical blow. Armed robbery at the corner store. Someone said they had a gun. Police found fingerprints. That last bit stops her cold. She grips her locker door, knuckles white as the implications sink in. Fingerprints mean evidence. Evidence means time running out. During lunch, she sits alone, food untouched, as her classmates' voices wash over her. Two juniors at the next table lean close, their whispers carrying. Cops found a partial print on the register, one says. My dad's on the force, says they're running it now. Sara's hands shake as she reaches for her phone, muscle memory wanting to warn Jayden. But she stops herself. Every text is a risk, every call a potential trail leading straight to him. The afternoon brings fresh challenges. Officer Hernandez stands near the principal's office after last period, his presence like a physical weight in the air. Sara's known him since she was little. He'd worked with her grandfather, attended his funeral, encouraged her dreams of joining the force. His sharp eyes scan the passing students, eventually landing on her. Sara, he calls, voice warm with familiarity that feels like sandpaper on her nerves. Got a minute? She forces her feet to carry her over, schooling her features into what she hopes is casual interest. Officer Hernandez? Quite a situation we've got, he says, studying her face. Whole department's out looking. Word is the suspect's still in town. Each word feels like a test. Sara's throat tightens, but she manages a nod. Yeah, I heard something about that. Keep your eyes open, okay? You know this town better than most. His smile carries years of shared understanding that now feel like betrayal. Let us know if you see anything unusual. Of course. The words taste like ash in her mouth. That evening, Sara slips out to the shed, heart pounding with each step. Jayden paces the small space, wearing tracks in the dusty floor. His eyes are hollow when they meet hers, dark circles testament to a sleepless night. They found fingerprints, she tells him, the words hanging heavy in the musty air. They're processing them now. Jayden's jaw tightens, fear flashing across his features. Sara. His voice cracks. I need to know. Are you with me in this? Will you help me get out? The question lands like a physical blow. Sara stares at the boy she loves, seeing both the frightened teenager before her and the armed robber he became. The distance between those two images feels impossible to bridge. Her silence stretches, filling the space between them with unspoken words and impossible choices. Outside, a police siren wails in the distance. its sound a reminder that time is running out for both of them. The manhunt intensifies as darkness falls. Police cruisers patrol Willow Creek streets with methodical precision, their searchlights cutting through shadows and secrets. Sara watches from her bedroom window as another helicopter sweeps overhead, its spotlight painting harsh circles on familiar streets. The town she's known all her life feels alien now, transformed into a maze of threat and possibility. Each alley could hide a patrol car. Each shadow could conceal an officer. The net is tightening, and Sara feels it squeezing her heart with every passing hour. Her phone buzzes, a text from her mother saying she's working late again. The house settles around her, empty and accusing. On her desk, college brochures and application essays wait like abandoned dreams, their promises of future glory now tainted by present choices. A sharp knock at the front door makes her jump. Through the peephole, Officer Hernandez's familiar figure waits on her porch, his cruiser parked at the curb. Sara's hands shake as she opens the door, forcing her features into what she hopes is casual surprise. "Officer Hernandez?" She's proud that her voice stays steady. "Is everything okay?" His eyes are kind, but there's steel beneath the warmth. "Just following up on some leads, Sara. Mind if I come in?" The questions start casual enough. How's school? How's her mother? How are her academy preparations coming along? But there's purpose behind each one, building towards something that makes Sara's palms sweat. "We had a witness report seeing someone matching Jayden Carter's description near the gas station yesterday," Hernandez says, watching her face. "You two are close, aren't you?" Sara's heart hammers against her ribs. "We date," she manages, "but I haven't seen him since." The lie sticks in her throat. "Since when, Sara?" Before she can answer, her phone chimes. A text from an unknown number. "Need to move. Police everywhere. Please help." Hernandez's eyes flick to her phone. "Everything all right?" "Just my mom," Sara lies, the words bitter on her tongue, "checking when I'll be home." After what feels like hours, Hernandez leaves. Sara waits until his cruiser disappears around the corner before running to the shed, her feet carrying her through darkness she can barely see through tears. Jayden's pacing again, his movements frantic. "They're everywhere," he gasps when she enters. "I heard them talking. They're going house to house. I need to get out tonight, Sara. Please." She stares at him. This boy she's loved since freshman year, this stranger who held up a store at gunpoint, his hands reach for hers, trembling with desperation. "Help me," he pleads. "We can figure something out. Start fresh somewhere else. Please, Sara, I love you." The words hit her like physical blows. Before she can respond, her mother's voice cuts through the night. "Sara? Are you out there?" Jayden's grip tightens painfully on her hands. Sara meets his eyes one last time, seeing all their shared dreams and shattered futures reflected there. Then she pulls away, leaving him alone in the darkness as she heads toward her mother's voice. Inside, Janet Marshall stands in their kitchen, still in her nurse's scrubs. "Everything okay, honey? You look pale." Sara manages a nod, but her mother's words about hope and integrity wash over her like waves, each one eroding her defenses further. Later, alone in her room, she finally lets the sobs come. They rack her body as she curls into herself, the weight of impending choices crushing the air from her lungs. Her grandfather's badge rests on her nightstand, catching moonlight like a silvery accusation. Sara stares at it through tears, knowing that the next choice she makes will define not just her future, but the very core of who she is. Outside, sirens continue their mournful song, and somewhere in the darkness, Jayden waits for an answer she's not sure she can give. Sara sits at her desk, the police academy brochure spread before her like a map to a future that feels increasingly out of reach. The dim glow of her desk lamp casts long shadows across the glossy pages, distorting the proud faces of the officers pictured there. Her fingers trace the edges of the paper, catching on a dog-eared corner where she's folded and unfolded it countless times. A police siren wails in the distance, and Sara flinches, her shoulders tensing at the sound that once filled her with purpose. Now it only reminds her of Jayden's face, desperate, afraid, betrayed. She closes her eyes, trying to summon the image that's guided her for so long, herself in uniform, standing proud like her grandfather. But Jayden's voice echoes in her mind, pleading, breaking through every barrier of certainty she's built. Memories flood in, unbidden and sharp. Jayden's laugh echoing across the diner booth as he stole fries from her plate. His gentle touch when she pushed herself too hard in training. The quiet determination in his voice when he talked about keeping his family afloat. Each memory feels tainted now, overlaid with the knowledge of what he's done. Sarah's hand finds her grandfather's badge, the metal warm from resting against her chest. "What would you do?" she whispers to the empty room. The question hangs in the air, unanswered. Her grandfather's principles were always so clear: justice, honor, protecting the innocent. But he never told her what to do when justice meant destroying someone you love. The walls of her bedroom feel too close, the air too thick with questions she can't answer. Sarah pushes back from her desk, grabbing her jacket. She needs to move, to think, to find some clarity in the chaos of her thoughts. Willow Creek's streets stretch empty before her, back painted in the muted colors of sunset. The air carries an unfamiliar tension, the kind that comes with a manhunt. Sarah's footsteps echo off brick buildings and boarded-up storefronts, each sound a reminder of how quickly a familiar world can become strange. The police station comes into view, its windows glowing against the darkening sky. Officer Hernandez stands outside, speaking in low tones with two other officers. Their faces are drawn, serious. Sarah watches them, remembering countless afternoons spent imagining herself among their ranks. Now the sight of their badges makes her stomach twist. The reality of her situation hits her like a physical blow. If she follows the path she's always dreamed of, she'll have to betray Jayden. The thought sends a wave of nausea through her, and she grips the cold metal railing outside the station to steady herself. Tears sting her eyes, but she blinks them back. She can't afford to break down. Not here. Not now. Back in her room, Sarah paces the worn carpet, her thoughts spinning like leaves in a storm. "I want to protect people," she mutters, the words falling flat in the empty space. "But who am I protecting if I betray Jayden?" Her eyes land on the framed photo on her nightstand, her and Jayden at the county fair last summer. His arm is draped around her shoulders, his smile wide and genuine. Hope radiates from the image, captured in the tilt of his head, the light in his eyes. That hope feels like a cruel joke now, shattered by choices neither of them can take back. Sarah's legs give out, and she sinks to the floor, wrapping her arms around her knees. "I don't know how to fix this," she whispers to the darkness. The walls of her carefully built future crack and crumble around her, leaving only questions where certainty used to be. The next evening brings a new torment. An envelope, crumpled and worn, pushed under her front door. Sarah recognizes Jayden's handwriting instantly, the familiar slope of the letters making her heart stutter. Her hands shake as she tears it open, unfolding the paper inside. The words blur and sharpen as she reads, each line hitting her like a physical blow. Jayden didn't rob the store for his family. He did it for her. He knew about the hidden costs of the police academy: uniforms, supplies, travel expenses, all the things she never mentioned but worried about late at night. "I couldn't stand by and watch you lose your dream," Jayden wrote, his desperation bleeding through every word. "I thought if I took this one risk, it would all be worth it." The letter trembles in Sarah's grip, tears splashing onto the paper and making the ink run. The truth feels like glass in her chest, sharp and impossible to ignore. Jayden risked everything, his freedom, his future, his very soul, not for himself, but for her dreams. Sarah's breath comes in short, painful gasps as the full weight of his sacrifice settles over her. If she hadn't been so focused on her goals, so determined to follow her path no matter the cost, maybe Jayden wouldn't have felt so desperate. Love and guilt twist together in her chest, a knot she can't untangle. She collapses onto her bed, the letter clutched against her heart. Jayden's actions were reckless, criminal, everything she stands against. But they came from a place of love so deep it terrifies her. Her heart splinters under the pressure of conflicting emotions. Betrayal of her principles, the depth of Jayden's sacrifice, and the knowledge that no matter what she chooses, someone will lose everything. Hours pass, marked only by the steady track of tears down Sarah's face. When they finally stop, she lies hollow and drained, staring at the ceiling as understanding settles over her like frost. The truth has changed everything, except the consequences. Jayden's sacrifice, born of love, doesn't erase the crime. If she helps him escape, She betrays not only her principles, but everything she's ever believed about justice and accountability. If she turns him in, she betrays the boy who loved her enough to risk everything for her dreams. The realization comes slowly, then all at once. Protecting Jayden from the law will only destroy him further. True love means wanting the best for someone, even when it hurts. And the only path to redemption is through accountability. Sara grips the letter tightly, her decision crystallizing with painful clarity. She has to turn him in. It's the only way to save him, even if it means breaking both their hearts. Dawn paints the sky in pale strokes as Sara walks to the old shed where Jayden hides. Each step feels like lead, her heart a heavy stone in her chest. The morning air bites at her skin, or maybe that's just the weight of what she's about to do. Jayden's eyes light up when he sees her, hope breaking across his face like sunrise. But the expression fades as he takes in her red-rimmed eyes, the tear tracks on her cheeks. Sara? Her voice trembles but doesn't break. It's over, Jay. You need to turn yourself in. The words hang between them like shattered glass. Jayden's face crumples, pain and betrayal etched into every line. I did this for you, he whispers, and Sara's heart splinters into 1,000 pieces. Her hands shake as she pulls out her phone. Each ring of the police station's number feels like a knife in her chest. When Officer Hernandez answers, Sara's voice comes out barely above a whisper. I know where he is. She hangs up and collapses to her knees, sobs racking her body. Jayden kneels beside her, his own tears falling freely now. He cups her cheek with one hand at like his touch achingly gentle. I'm sorry, he whispers. Me too, Sara chokes out, the words tasting like ash. The sound of approaching sirens grows louder, painting the morning in flashes of red and blue. Sara's world blurs as Jayden steps out of the shed, his hands raised in surrender. Officer Hernandez gives her a long, sorrowful look as he leads Jayden to the waiting patrol car. Sara stands alone in the growing light, her dream intact, but her heart in ruins. As the police car pulls away, she whispers to herself, this was the right thing. But the words offer no comfort, only the cold certainty that doing right doesn't always feel right at all. Sara's knees press into the rough wooden floor of the abandoned shed, splinters threatening through her worn jeans. The air hangs thick with dust and desperation, barely stirred by the weak beam of moonlight filtering through a cracked window. Beside her, Jayden slumps against the wall, his usual easy confidence replaced by something hollow and haunting. You can't keep running. Her voice wavers but holds steady, like a bridge threatening to buckle but refusing to fall. There's still a chance to make this right. Jayden's laugh comes out bitter, barely more than an exhale. Right? Sara, I robbed a store at gunpoint. There's no making that right. Maybe not today. She grips his hand, feeling the tremors running through his fingers. His skin is cold, too cold for the mild spring night. But someday, if you face this now, show them you want to change. They won't care why I did it. His eyes fix on the far wall, seeing something beyond the peeling paint and water stains. They'll just see another kid from the wrong side of town living down to their expectations. That's not true. Sara shifts closer, her free hand finding his chin, gently turning his face toward hers. You're more than one mistake. But you have to own it, Jay. You have to show them who you really are. His jaw tightens under her touch, but she sees something flicker in his eyes. A spark of the boy who used to dream about college, about building something better than what Willow Creek offered. What about Mia? The words slip out soft but sharp, like a blade wrapped in silk. What kind of example are you setting for her? Jayden flinches as if she'd struck him. His sister's name hits harder than any physical blow could. She looks up to you, Sara presses on. Do you want her thinking this is how problems get solved? That running is the answer? I was trying to protect her. His voice cracks. Mom's killing herself working doubles, and Mia needs so much. School supplies, new clothes, a decent laptop for her homework. And how will she get any of that if you're in hiding, or worse? Sara blinks back tears, refusing to let them fall. She needs to be strong now, stronger than she's ever been. You made a mistake, Jay. A big one. But mistakes don't have to define you unless you let them. The silence stretches between them, heavy with unspoken fears and fading dreams. Through the window, a police siren wails in the distance, not searching, not yet, but a reminder that time is running out. I believe in you. Sarah's whisper barely disturbs the dust motes dancing in the moonlight. Please, believe in yourself too. Jayden's exhale shudders through his entire body. When he finally meets her gaze, something has shifted in his eyes. Resignation, maybe, or the first fragile seed of acceptance. Okay, he mumbles, the word barely audible. Okay, I'll turn myself in. Tomorrow morning. First light. Relief floods Sarah's chest, but anxiety still coils in her stomach like a restless snake. She knows how far the distance is between saying and doing, between night's promises and morning's courage. I'll be with you, she promises, squeezing his hand. Every step. His answering smile doesn't reach his eyes, but he nods. Sarah pushes herself to her feet, her legs protesting the long minutes spent on the hard floor. At the door, she looks back one last time. Jayden sits exactly where she left him, his silhouette cut sharp against the moonlight, looking impossibly young and terribly alone. The walk home feels endless. Every shadow seems to hide a threat. Every rustle of leaves carries whispered doubts. Sarah's mind races ahead to morning, to the long walk to the police station, to the moment when promises must become reality. She doesn't sleep. How could she? The ceiling above her bed becomes a canvas for every possible tomorrow. Jayden walking into the station, head held high. Jayden running, disappearing into the gathering dawn. Jayden caught in some violent confrontation that ends with shots fired and sirens wailing. Her phone sits silent on the nightstand, its dark screen reflecting nothing but her own fears. Until it buzzes. The message glows harsh in the darkness, 5 words that shatter whatever fragile hope the night had built. Jayden's running. Thought you should know. Ronnie's name above the text feels like an accusation. Sarah's out of bed before she consciously decides to move, shoving her feet into sneakers, grabbing a jacket against the pre-dawn chill. Her hands shake so badly she nearly drops her phone, but she manages to stuff it into her pocket as she takes the stairs 2 at a time. The shed door swings open at her touch, creaking on rusted hinges. Empty. The space where Jayden sat holds nothing but disturbed dust and the lingering ghost of broken promises. Sarah's stomach lurches, bile rising in her throat as reality crashes over her like a wave of ice water. He ran. After everything, their history, their trust, their love, he chose to run. Her phone feels impossibly heavy as she pulls it from her pocket. The numbers she needs are seared into her memory, though she's never had to use them before. Her finger hovers over the keypad, each digit a step closer to a line she can't uncross. This is Hernandez. The officer's familiar voice, heard so many times during career day presentations and community meetings, now feels like a knife twisting in her gut. He's running. Sarah's voice breaks, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. Jayden's running, and I know where he might go. You have to stop him before he gets hurt, before he hurts someone else, before there's no coming back from any of this. A pause, heavy with understanding. We're on it. The call ends, leaving Sarah alone with the weight of her choice. Her legs give out and she sinks to her knees in the damp grass, the earth swimming before her tear-blurred eyes. Somewhere in the distance, sirens begin to wail. The streets of Willow Creek come alive with red and blue lightning, emergency lights painting stark shadows across buildings. Sarah has known all her life. Police cruisers slide through intersections like sharks through dark water, their radios crackling with coded urgency. The night air carries voices, sharp commands, running footsteps, the collective breath of a small town watching its own tragedy unfold. Jayden runs. Through back alleys he played in as a child, past the diner where he and Sarah shared countless plates of fries, behind the shuttered storefronts that mark Willow Creek's slow decay. His breath comes in ragged gasps, feet pounding against cracked pavement, each step taking him further from everything he knows but no closer to escape. He ducks behind a dumpster, the metal cold against his back. Sweat runs down his face despite the spring chill, and his hands won't stop shaking. What have I done? The words barely make it past his lips, a question with no answer that could possibly make things right. Sarah arrives at the scene just as Officer Hernandez steps out of his cruiser, his face grim but not unkind. He's close, he tells her, and something in his tone suggests he understands exactly what this night costs her. She pushes past the gathering officers, their voices a blur of tactical terms and coordinates. None of that matters. Only one voice matters now. Jayden. Her shout cuts through the chaos, bouncing off brick walls and broken windows. Please. He emerges from the shadows like a ghost stepping through a veil. Their eyes lock across 20 feet of moonlit pavement, and for a moment, the world narrows to just them. The girl who dreams of protecting others, and the boy who tried to protect everyone but himself. Trust me. Sarah's voice cracks but doesn't break. It's not too late. The fight drains from Jayden's shoulders like water from a broken vessel. His next step forward is shaky but deliberate, hands rising slowly above his head. Officer Hernandez moves in with practiced efficiency, the handcuffs catching moonlight as they close around Jayden's wrists. Just before they lead him to the waiting cruiser, Jayden looks back. His eyes find Sarah's through the chaos. Pain there, yes, and fear, but something else too. Understanding, maybe. Or the first spark of what understanding might become. Sarah watches the cruiser pull away, red and blue lights growing smaller until they're swallowed by the night. The badge around her neck, her grandfather's badge, her promise to protect and serve, feels heavier than ever. But as she stands in the settling quiet of a Willow Creek dawn, she knows that sometimes protection means making the hardest choice, and sometimes service means breaking your own heart to save someone else's soul. The path to redemption stretches long before them both, but at least now there is a path. Sarah stares at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, watching droplets of water slide down her neck from freshly washed hair. The ticking of the wall clock echoes through the silent house, each second hammering home the weight of what's to come. Her hands tremble as she lifts the brush to her hair, the familiar motion feeling foreign and strange. The brush snags on a tangle, and Sarah welcomes the sharp sting. It's better than the hollow ache in her chest, the void where certainty used to live. Her eyes drift to the police academy brochure lying open on her desk, its glossy pages catching the morning light. Beside it, Jayden's letter sits crumpled and worn from repeated readings, his hurried handwriting a testament to desperation and love gone wrong. Tears blur her vision, and Sarah blinks them back. "This is right," she whispers to her reflection, but her voice breaks on the last word. The path of justice has never felt more like a tightrope walk over an abyss. She sets the brush down with deliberate care, straightening her shoulders. The next few hours will change everything. For her, for Jayden, for the future they once dreamed of sharing. But change doesn't mean destruction. Sometimes it means salvation. The pre-dawn air bites at Sarah's cheeks as she walks to the shed, her breath forming small clouds in the darkness. The small duffel bag weighs heavy in her hands, packed with essentials for Jayden's last moments of freedom. A clean shirt, water, and the photograph she'd stolen from his family's living room wall. It's not much, but it's all she can offer now, besides her presence and her promise that this is the right path. Gravel crunches under her feet as she approaches the shed. Her hand hesitates on the door handle, remembering all the summer afternoons she and Jayden spent here, planning their future between kisses and laughter. Now it's become a different kind of sanctuary, a waiting room between one life and another. The door creaks open, and Sarah's heart clenches at the sight of Jayden huddled on the floor. His eyes are hollow, dark circles beneath them, testament to a sleepless night. When he spots the bag in her hands, something flickers across his face. Pain, understanding, resignation. "You don't have to do this alone," Sarah says softly, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. The words hang in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Jayden nods, his jaw clenched tight enough that she can see the muscle working beneath his skin. He pushes himself to his feet, his tall frame unfolding in the cramped space. Their fingers brush as he reaches for her, and Sarah fights the urge to pull him close and never let go. His touch is gentle, hesitant, like he's afraid she might shatter. Or maybe he's the one who's breaking. "I'm scared, Sarah," Jayden admits, his voice rough and raw. The words seem to cost him something vital, stripped of all pretense and bravado. Sarah looks up at him, tears spilling despite her best efforts to hold them back. Love and sorrow tangle in her chest, making it hard to breathe. "I know," she whispers, "but you're not alone." Jayden pulls her into an embrace so tight it hurts, but Sarah doesn't care. She wraps her arms around him, memorizing the feel of his heartbeat against her cheek, the familiar scent of his skin. Their tears mingle, soaking into each other's shirts, silent promises and unspoken goodbyes exchanged in the space between breaths. When they finally pull apart, Sara reaches into her pocket with trembling fingers. Her grandfather's badge catches the first rays of dawn streaming through the shed's dusty window. She presses it into Jayden's palm, curling his fingers around the cool metal. "This isn't just a symbol of justice," she says, her voice thick with emotion. "It's a symbol of second chances." Jayden's fingers tighten around the badge, and something shifts in his expression. Determination replacing despair, if only for a moment. They share one final look, volumes spoken in silence, before stepping out of the shed together. Their steps are unsteady but unwavering as they walk toward the inevitable, toward the hope of redemption that lies beyond the pain. The walk to the police station feels both endless and too short. Sara's hand is locked with Jayden's, their fingers intertwined so tightly it hurts. The early morning light paints everything in shades of gold and shadow, as if the world itself is holding its breath. Curtains twitch in windows as they pass. Mrs. Walker stands on her porch in her faded robe, coffee cup forgotten in her hands. Her eyes are sad but understanding as she watches them pass, offering a small nod that feels like benediction. Sara tightens her grip on Jayden's hand, grateful for this quiet show of support in a town too often quick to judge. The police station looms ahead, its brick facade both familiar and foreign. Sara has spent countless hours dreaming of working behind those walls, of following in her grandfather's footsteps. Now the building represents something entirely different, an ending and a beginning, wrapped in cold steel and procedure. Officer Hernandez stands by the entrance, his usually stern face softened with compassion. He nods at Sara, a gesture that acknowledges both her courage and her pain. The weight of his understanding nearly breaks her resolve. Jayden stops abruptly a few feet from the station door, his chest heaving with barely controlled panic. His eyes dart to Sara's face, searching for something. Permission, perhaps, or the strength to take these final steps. Sara releases his hand to cup his cheek, her fingers trembling against his skin. "You're stronger than you think," she whispers, willing him to believe it as much as she does. "This is how you take back your life." Jayden's eyes close at her touch, his breath shuddering out of him. When he opens them again, something has shifted. Fear giving way to resolve, however fragile. He turns toward the station door, each step measured and deliberate. Officer Hernandez approaches with quiet authority, his voice pitched low and gentle. "Jayden Carter, you're making the right choice." The words carry no judgment, only acknowledgement of the courage this moment requires. Jayden holds out his wrists, hands steady despite everything. The handcuffs gleam in the morning light, their purpose unavoidable. The click of metal against skin sounds like a gunshot in the quiet street. Sara's breath catches in her throat as the cuffs lock into place, the sound final and irrevocable. Every instinct screams at her to stop this, to grab Jayden's hand and run until they find somewhere justice can't touch them. But Jayden turns his head, meeting her gaze one last time. "Thank you," he says, the words carrying the weight of everything they've been through, everything they're about to face. Officer Hernandez guides Jayden toward the station doors with gentle professionalism. Sunlight catches on the handcuffs, throwing fractals of light across the building's facade. Each step takes Jayden further away from her, further from the future they once planned. The doors swing shut with a heavy thud, and Sara's knees finally give out. She slumps against the cold brick wall, tears falling freely now. Quiet sobs rack her body as she mourns not just for what she's lost, but for what she's gained, the knowledge that sometimes love means letting go, that justice and mercy can coexist in the same broken heart. The town is waking up around her, oblivious to the small tragedy playing out in its midst. Car engines rumble to life, screen doors slam, and somewhere a dog barks at the morning paper delivery. Life continues its relentless forward motion, even as Sara's world reshapes itself into something new and uncertain. Officer Hernandez emerges from the station, his footsteps deliberate on the concrete. "You did the right thing, Sara," he says, his voice firm but kind. "He has a chance now." Sara wipes her tears with the back of her hand, forcing herself to stand straight. The weight in her chest is still there, but it feels different now, more like armor than chains. I just hope he believes that too. Hernandez squeezes her shoulder once before heading back inside, leaving Sara alone with the rising sun. Its warmth touches her face like a gentle reminder that this is just one moment in a longer story. A new day has begun for her, for Jayden, for all the tomorrows that will follow this choice. The walk to the Carter house feels like walking through molasses. Sarah's feet are heavy, but her heart is heavier still. When Mia opens the door, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy, Sara doesn't hesitate. She pulls the younger girl into a fierce hug, letting Mia's tears soak into her shoulder. Carla Carter appears in the doorway, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. "Thank you for being here, Sara," she manages, her voice cracking on the last word. The gratitude in her tone makes Sarah's throat tight. Gratitude for being here now, for helping Jayden choose the harder right over the easier wrong. They spend the day in quiet industry. Sara helps clean the house, fold laundry, prepare meals, all the mundane tasks that ground them in normalcy when nothing feels normal anymore. The silence between them is heavy but not uncomfortable, filled with shared grief and understanding. In the kitchen, Sara methodically peels potatoes, focusing on the repetitive motion to keep her hands steady. Mia sits at the table, watching with red-rimmed eyes. Will Jayden be okay? The question comes out small and scared, reminding Sara that Mia is still just a kid, trying to understand why her brother had to go away. Sara forces a smile, though her heart aches. "He will be," she says, and she's surprised to find she believes it. "We just have to believe in him." That night, Sara sits at her desk, surrounded by police academy applications. The weight of the day settles around her shoulders like a familiar cloak. The lamp casts a warm circle of light on the papers, making the words blur and swim before her eyes. Her fingers find her grandfather's badge automatically, seeking comfort in its familiar edges. The metal is warm from her grip, as if it's absorbed some of her pain and transformed it into something else. Determination, maybe, or hope. "Justice means doing the hard things," she whispers to the quiet room. The memory of Jayden's surrender plays behind her eyes, a reminder that sometimes the hardest choices are the only ones worth making. Sara pulls a fresh application form toward her, uncapping her pen with steady hands. Her personal statement flows onto the page, different from all her previous drafts. She writes about accountability and redemption, about the strength it takes to choose the right path, even when it breaks your heart. She writes about justice as a living thing, something that must be tempered with mercy to truly serve its purpose. The morning light finds Sara walking to the post office, her completed application sealed in a crisp white envelope. Each step feels like a commitment, a promise to herself and to the future she's chosen. The breeze carries the scent of blooming flowers, nature's reminder that life continues its cycle, regardless of human tragedy. Sara breathes it in, letting it fill the hollow spaces in her chest. She knows this path won't be easy. The echo of Jayden's "thank you" still rings in her ears, a bittersweet reminder of everything she's gained and lost. But for the first time since that fateful night at the warehouse, Sara feels steady on her feet. She carries Jayden's story with her now, not as a burden, but as a testament to the complexity of justice and love. It will shape her approach to law enforcement, remind her that behind every crime is a human being capable of change. The future stretches out before her, uncertain but full of possibility. Sara takes another deep breath, squaring her shoulders. She's ready to face whatever comes next, knowing that redemption is possible for everyone, including herself, including Jayden. The hard part isn't over, but at least now they're both walking towards something better, even if they have to walk those paths separately. The morning sun catches on the envelope as Sara slides it into the mailbox. It feels like posting a letter to her future self, to the officer she hopes to become, someone who understands that true justice requires both strength and compassion, someone who knows firsthand that doing the right thing often hurts, but does it anyway. She turns away from the mailbox, heading home through the awakening town. Each step feels lighter than the last, as if the weight of indecision has finally lifted from her shoulders. The path ahead is clear now, even if it's not the one she originally imagined. Sara touches the empty spot where her grandfather's badge used to hang, and for the first time since giving it to Jayden, she smiles. Some sacrifices are worth making, some losses necessary for growth, and sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most important changes. The sun climbs higher in the sky as Sara walks home, casting her shadow long behind her. It's a new day in Willow Creek, and she's ready to face it, not as the girl who lost everything, but as the woman who chose justice, even when it broke her heart. Because sometimes that's what love really means, having the courage to let go so something better can begin. Thank you so much for watching and listening to our story. Your time and support mean the world to us. If this video resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content. Your engagement helps us grow and continue sharing meaningful stories. See you in the next video.